This sparring session was very interesting as a learning experience, and hopefully it will be interesting to watch. So the rules here are boxing with spinning back fists allowed, mixed with grappling. And as you'll see, it was difficult for me to get any grappling going. My opponent has a background in boxing as well as taekwondo and wrestling, and he has the longer reach, and he was really intent on just maintaining that distance and not letting me get him to the ground. Because even though he has trained wrestling, he hasn't trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he does know some submissions, but whenever we hit the ground I always tend to get him. Whenever we've done MMA sparring, I tend to land some kind of submission. So I was using a lot of head movement in this, trying to close the distance safely. And he was doing a nice job keeping me at bay. And I decided this rule set because I really wanted to practice my takedowns from a little bit of a closer distance. That's why I wanted to eliminate the kicks. But interestingly enough, it was a lot more difficult for me to get him down, as I wasn't able to catch his leg and sweep the other leg or do any of those styles of takedowns. Whenever I get close, he escapes just barely. But for the most part, I don't even get close. He manages the distance very well. And his hands are pretty unpredictable, I feel, because he mixes it up a lot. He doesn't always throw them from a high guard position, and he does a lot of feints and stuff. Especially in previous sparring rounds, I had a lot of difficulty with his hands, but here I felt like I had a little bit more of a read on them. Still, I have a really hard time closing the distance. To the body and high, and I tried to do a spinning back fist. Not really to land, more as a setup to get in close, but yeah, grab a hold of him, but good defense as well. Like I said, he's also trained some wrestling. And especially in an open space like this, it can be really difficult to get a guy down if he's intently focused on not going to the ground. Of course, in self-defense or something, the person will typically attack you at close range, and in a clinching range it's more easy to go for a takedown. And what I mean by that is, if someone is aggressive to the point of attacking you, typically they won't stand from a distance and jab like my opponent does here. That's more of a thing you'll find typically in combat sports, unless you end up in a street fight with a trained and composed boxer, of course, who uses that long style of boxing. And I switch stance and I switch again to try and close the distance, and I almost managed to get in close and grab a hold, but again he escapes. He uses that jab which comes from below the line of vision the low guard. But he can definitely also keep his hands up when he needs to. And it was quite interesting this, because usually I like to fight from a distance, so in this I was kind of playing the bull and he was the matador trying to maintain distance. So it was a good training experience for me to be more of a pressure fighter in this round. When you take away the kicks, and I have the incentive to try and get a takedown and create a submission that made for that dynamic. But in the end, I never got it to the ground. Some nice head movement and spinning attempt, and I'm running at him. And that final part was off camera. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. After years of free content, the time has come where I need a helping hand from some of you. You can support me with $3 each month or 5 or 10 for a few extra benefits. Supporting Zen-Dragon via Patreon will probably make no difference to you financially. If you're living hand to mouth, I don't want your money. Then I'd rather you keep them for yourself. Don't worry, I'll be alright. The donations are in place to help cover equipment and other expenses for the channel. Now that I'm also a father, it's more challenging than ever to find the time to create and share free content. But if enough of you support on Patreon, there will come a day where I can cut down my 9-to-5 job, either partially or altogether, which will make it sustainable to continue creating and sharing free content here on YouTube. Even if that does not happen, I'll still continue sharing, but possibly with longer breaks in between. Thanks for listening. Now visit my Patreon, that's patreon.com/Zen-Dragon. I greatly appreciate you for listening and for continually watching Zen-Dragon.